haunting tale. Nija's new house was nestled deep within the heart of an ancient, sprawling forest. It seemed like a dream come true, a tranquil retreat from the bustling city where she had spent her entire life. The lush green canopy of the woods that surrounded her home gave the impression of serenity and isolation. Little did she know that this idyllic setting would become the backdrop for a nightmarish tale that would haunt her for the rest of her life. In the beginning, life in the forest was everything Nija had hoped for. The woods were her sanctuary, a place of quiet reflection and solace. The trees, tall and majestic, swayed gently in the breeze, and the melodies of chirping birds and rustling leaves filled the air. She spent her days exploring the winding forest trails, admiring the beauty of the natural world around her. However, as the days turned into weeks, a subtle unease began to creep into Nija's life. It started with small, seemingly innocent occurrences. Objects in her house would inexplicably move from their original positions. The rustling of leaves outside her window at night took on an eerie, almost human quality. Whispers, barely audible, echoed through the halls of her home, their words indecipherable but laden with a haunting tone. At first, Nija attributed these incidents to her overactive imagination or the quirks of an old house. She dismissed the unease that gnawed at her and continued to immerse herself in the natural beauty that surrounded her. However, it wasn't long before the paranormal activity escalated to a point where she could no longer ignore it. One evening, as she sat at her wooden desk, scrolling through online property listings in search of a new place to live, she heard the unmistakable creak of her closet door. Her heart began to pound, and a chill ran down her spine. She froze in her chair, her eyes fixed on the closet door. The door, which she had securely shut earlier, now swung open slowly, as an invisible hand beckoned her into the darkness within. Her breaths quickened, and her hands trembled as she approached the closet cautiously. Her fingers brushed the door frame, and it was as cold as ice. She hesitated for a moment, then summoned the courage to look inside. The closet was empty, devoid of any explanation for the inexplicable motion. It was a void, an abyss that seemed to swallow the light, and an icy draft whispered from its depths. Nija slammed the door shut, her heart pounding in her chest. She could no longer dismiss the events as mere coincidence or the workings of her imagination. Something was terribly wrong in that house. Determined to leave this unsettling place behind, Nija intensified her search for a new house. She scoured websites, contacted real estate agents, and explored nearby towns in pursuit of a fresh start. It was during this search that the forest itself seemed to turn against her. As she ventured deeper into the woods, each step became more ominous. The once inviting trees now took on a sinister aspect. Their branches twisted into grotesque shapes that resembled clawed hands reaching out to grasp her. The leaves, once a soothing symphony, now rustled with a cacophonous whisper that seemed to mock her presence. Despite the growing dread that enveloped her, Nija pressed on, determined to find a new home far away from the haunted woods. She knew she couldn't escape the inexplicable terrors within her current dwelling by simply moving deeper into the forest. It was during one of these treacherous journeys that her worst nightmares came to life. One fateful night, as the moon cast airy shadows through the trees, Nija was lying in her bed, her mind filled with thoughts of the new house she hoped to find. The room grew colder with each passing moment, and the air became dense, as if the very atmosphere had thickened. She pulled her blanket tighter around her, trying to ward off the chill. Then, a voice, cold and guttural, pierced the silence. It whispered her name, a sinister hiss that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the forest. Nija's heart raced, and she opened her eyes, her breath caught in her throat. There, at the foot of her bed, two hauntingly luminescent orbs stared back at her. They were a deep, blood red, and they gleamed with malevolence as they bore into her soul. She tried to scream, but her voice failed her, escaping her throat only as a feeble whimper. Her limbs refused to obey her commands as she lay paralyzed in the grip of terror. Those sinister eyes remained locked onto her, unblinking and filled with a dark hunger. She closed her eyes tightly, desperately hoping it was all a nightmare, a figment of her imagination. But when she mustered the courage to open them again, those dreadful eyes had moved. They were no longer at the foot of her bed. In a state of sheer panic, Nija's gaze darted around the room. It was then that she saw them, those same malevolent eyes, now fixed on her bedroom door. They radiated a sinister presence, and they seemed to beckon her to make an escape attempt. Fear gripped her, but her body remained paralyzed. Minutes stretched into an eternity as Nija struggled against the invisible bonds that held her captive. The malevolent eyes continued to watch, their intensity never wavering. Her mind raced, desperately seeking a solution, an escape from this living nightmare. Finally, as abruptly as it had begun, the paralysis released its grip on Nija, and the room's temperature returned to normal. She wasted no time. She knew that whatever malevolent force dwelled in that house was beyond her comprehension and control. With trembling hands, she packed her belongings and fled from the accursed house in the woods, vowing never to return. Nija's harrowing experience served as a chilling reminder that sometimes, the most terrifying experiences are the ones we can't explain. The forest, once her sanctuary, had become a place of unspeakable horrors. And the malevolent presence that haunted her would forever remain a haunting enigma. As she drove away from the woods that had once seemed so inviting, Nija couldn't help but wonder if the forest held ancient secrets, dark and unfathomable, that were better left undiscovered. The events that had transpired in that house would forever haunt her dreams, a chilling reminder of the malevolent forces that can lurk in even the most beautiful and serene of places.
The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe Chills and Thrills for more. Do tell us in the comments and let us know if you've ever experienced such things.